So tablet teaching, this title is called Tablet Teaching in Class and Online, and I want to start with kind of where we got started with at our university with using tablet teaching. The first place that we actually began brainstorming along this line was at a math conference specifically in Arkansas about smart boards, which is obviously not tablet teaching, but that is where we got our start. Some of the benefits that we saw there had to do with making the environment more interactive for students. Students really like technology. I know we have some students here in the audience, and you guys like technology, right? Right, you're on it right now, aren't you? Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can't draw yourself away from it. I have children as well, and they can't pull themselves away from it. So we had this sort of draw towards using something that was techie in our classrooms. And in particular, we liked what we saw in this particular workshop is what it was, about the recording features. Some of the concerns that we had were really centered around if I'm recording what I'm doing and I'm posting it for students to use, will they still come to my classroom? And that was definitely a concern that we had over the whole process moving forward. But sort of the benefits outweighed the concerns, so we decided we wanted to give it a try. And then we also had the prospect of using this environment, these recordings that we were creating or were hoping to create in an online environment. So that's kind of where we got started. And so we went to this conference, this workshop in particular at this conference, and we came back and we were super excited. We really want a smart board. And so we actually ended up getting one, and it was sort of an accident. The education department had one, and they found that it's actually a mobile when it rolls around, that it didn't fit very well in the classroom that they envisioned using it in, and then they didn't have a use for it, so the mathematics department got it. So that was really exciting, and so we started using it. It had the interactive student environment that we were hoping for. It was fantastic. Also, the great techie tools, that was lots of fun. The recording features were not as good as we'd hoped. The recording feature that was sort of advertised, if you will, at that workshop was a program called Screencast-O-Matic. And it did work, but it didn't work very well. In order to actually get a good recording, you had to be very, very close to your product that you were recording from, which meant that I was stationary, kind of like I am up here right now. And that really was less than ideal because I'd really like to walk around and talk to you guys, and I can't do that, and I really want to do that if I'm teaching. So that was less than desirable. Another product that I had used before was the Symposium. Are you guys familiar with what that is? It's a smart product as well. It's much like having a monitor that I can write on. So imagine, a traditional computer system with a monitor, and I could actually write on the monitor. And I really liked that product when I had used it before, but it had been at a previous university I taught at. We had also been exposed to airliners. Is anybody familiar with what an airliner is? Okay. An airliner is another smart product, and it has the ability to be mobile, which is why it was sort of intriguing to us. Basically what it does is it would communicate with a smart board. So it would allow you to, write on this airliner, move around the audience and write on the airliner, and it would project onto the smartboard. But you couldn't see anything on the airliner. It was completely just a tablet that was not projecting on the tablet itself what you were doing on the board. And so it had sort of this sort of weird dynamic of being able to see what you were doing, and that was very awkward. And I actually, at this point, have seen a couple of my student teachers using them in classrooms. So they are used by my student teachers, and they take some getting used to because you can't see what you're writing. You're writing on this screen in front of you, but it's displaying somewhere else. It's a little bit awkward. And so then we kind of landed on iPads. And the iPad is what we actually use in our classrooms. We have a colleague who would prefer to use an Android version, but it's not user-friendly with the rest of the technology on campus, so he's kind of out of luck, and he gets to use his iPad anyway when he wants to use it. So let me talk a little bit about what happened with the iPad. So my colleague and I, my colleague is Sarah Marsh, and she's not here today. She's back at our university, but she and I both went to our dean after we had the wonderful Smartboard Advantage, and we said, man, we'd really like iPads instead. And we had a fantastic dean at the time who really advocated for our faculty, and she allocated funds within our actual department for us to be able to get iPads. We were actually the first two on campus to have iPads. iPads are now issued to everyone on our university campus. which is both productive and non-productive. It means that everyone has the ability to use them, but not everybody does, which means that it is an expense that I'm not sure isn't always necessary for our university. But at the time when we were issued them, we had an iPad 2. That's how long ago this was. They were the big giant ones, and they cost our dean about $500 a piece. That's what we were actually issued. I actually went and got current figures so I would make sure and give you the most up-to-date information that I found. The iPad mini is what I use now. An iPad mini 2 actually costs $220, which is a significant savings in a very short period of time. As with everything technology related, these things happen. And so it makes them very cost efficient, which was something that was beneficial to us. And we actually have a local PK8 school that uses iPads in their teaching. And honestly, this is what we did, is we had students who were doing observations in one of these classrooms, and they said, Dr. Haynes, you got to go see this teacher because she uses iPads the way you want to in your classroom. And we thought, wow, this is a resource we should definitely, explore. And so we went to them and we asked them questions about how they used them and what they did. And we modeled a lot of what we do after, honestly, a kindergarten classroom. Was where we actually began, and it was a kindergarten classroom, and there was an 8th grade classroom that we got the most information from, the teachers who were using them most significantly in their classrooms at this particular school. And they actually have classroom sets, multiple classroom sets that they can check out, much like what I remember checking out TI-84s in high school and being able to use in my classroom kind of thing. They have classroom sets of iPads that they do this with. So you might be thinking, okay, but like you're using this iPad up there and you're still stuck at the podium. And it's true, I am right now, but in my classroom back at my university, I'm not. So introduce an Apple TV. So do you know what an Apple TV is? I see lots of heads nodding now. So an Apple TV is a device that actually allows my iPad to connect wirelessly with the projector. And so when I have an Apple TV in my classroom, I can pick up my iPad, I can walk around, I'm not tethered to the podium. And that's fantastic. So being able to do that is actually fairly affordable. So my husband works in information technology at a bottling company for Coca-Cola, actually. And he was the one who has an Apple TV. We had one in our home, and he was like, well, why don't you just have this product? Then you can do this wireless, mobility thing that you want to do. And so we went to our IT department, and the first we got a little bit of pushback, my husband kept saying, like, they're affordable, they're not expensive, they're $150. You put them in the classroom, everybody could use it that uses that classroom. It's one $150 purchase. And so we convinced our IT department to try it in 3 classrooms, and they were the 3 classrooms that were the only classrooms that my colleague and I were going to be using. And so we arranged our schedules on purpose to have that happen. And we actually have them on every single classroom on our campus now, which is substantial. So we have complete freedom of movement. So I can move in and around in my classroom, and that has wonderful, wonderful possibilities. In particular, on the spot, I can walk to a student and I can hand them the iPad, and they can do the work on the iPad, and it will project on the screen. I don't force students to do this. It's volunteer kind of thing, but they like to. They think it's fun because, it's techie, right? It's techie. Also, another thing that I am able to use this for is at this point we have our 2 older versions of the iPads, the very first 2 that we had received, and we use them for student presentations. So at the very end of every semester, and we're about 2 weeks, I guess, from implementing this in one of my classes and a little bit further from another, my students will actually create a presentation, much like I'm giving you right now, that they'll present to their classmates. And it's a review, and so it gives them a quasi experience at teaching. I'm not grading exactly their teaching, but I do give them feedback on that and different things. It gives them experience with technology. One of the concerns that we have overall, and I know that you guys experience, is that higher education is usually not as far along in technology as the public schools are. And so we release our students frequently back into the public schools, and they don't really have the resources they need because they haven't actually been working in a technological, environment in the college setting. And we didn't want that to be happening for our students if we could find a way around it. And so it gives them some experience with this technology. One of the cool things it does is it allows creativity. And I should say also, these presentations that we are talking about are things that we modeled after the 8th grade classroom that we were talking with the teacher in creating all of this stuff ourselves. And so these are things that she actually did in her classroom. So it allows the students the creativity, and so they, are able to do different things with the technology that they wouldn't be able to do, and so they're able to intermix that artistic nature that some of them have, especially the elementary education majors, with the mathematics that we've been teaching them. And so what it also does is I do it in conjunction with a review activity at the end of the semester. And so it keeps me from standing up at the board and doing the exact same thing I did the first time I did it. And I find that to be a much more useful activity for the students than for me to be reiterating what I've already done. And so they actually select different activities from the different sections that we've done. They don't reteach them. They actually incorporate real-life examples, more rich problems than what, I did necessarily in class in those sections. They have to come and they have to talk with me. But they're the ones who are creating the review activity for the students instead of for me. And then I don't record them because I feel like that would be really, scary for some of them. They don't want to be recorded. I'm actually recording what I'm doing right now. I will post this to YouTube when I'm done, and I'm going to talk all about that in a minute. And that's what I do with all of my lectures, but I don't do that for the students. The program that we use, the app we use, actually has the ability to create a PDF at the end as well. And so I PDF all of their slides and I post those so that the students have the ability to access them as a part of their review too. Online potential. So all of these videos that I'm able to record in real time in my classroom allow me to be able to create a video of a classroom. And so it was able to replace a classroom setting in an online environment. We also post notes in our classroom management system. The classroom management system, so something like Blackboard or Desire to Learn or Canvas, the different ones that you've seen used. The one we use is called Moodle Rooms at my university. So we post videos in there, links to videos of YouTube. I post my notes in there. And then the students actually use an online homework system for all of their homework. We use 3 different online homework systems at my university because we kind of like different classes that use different, different online homework systems do different courses better. So we use WebAssign in our calculus courses. We use MyMathLab in the elementary content courses that we use. We also use them in our contemporary math course, which is like a gen ed course for mathematics, and we use them in a college algebra and sometimes in our trigonometry course. We use ALEX, which is another system in our intermediate algebra course, like an Algebra 2 equivalency for a high school class. And then also for trig, we've found that to be useful. Some of our professors prefer to use that one instead of MyMathLab. So those are the 3 online homework systems we use. The cool thing about creating an online homework system is that you'd really like to create a shell that you don't have to recreate every time you do it. And so that's what we actually have within our system, is that I have a shell when I create, let's just say college algebra, for example. If I want a college algebra course, I have exactly my same course that I did last summer. I can import it into a new version in my course management system. It has all the videos, it has all the notes, has all the information that the students need. I just have to re-import it, change dates, because obviously the dates change every semester that we do this for, and it's ready to go, and it doesn't take very long. It's the first time through that creates the workload, and then every time after that, it's a minimal amount of workload. And then the course contains the support that the students need. So much of this was actually what we were doing already. The part that we didn't have is we didn't have the videos to create the classroom environment. So the students were left sort of on their own to create and fill in these notes with their book and to teach it to themselves. And so these videos allow them that quasi-classroom environment in which to do it so that they're not left entirely on their own. So what I'd like to do now is I'd kind of like to walk through with you what I actually physically do when I create one of these presentations to do in class, one of these video presentations. The first thing that I did, and if you're interested in the ability to record and be able to post videos, is that I created a YouTube account. YouTube.com, and if you verify your YouTube account, you will be able to actually post videos that are longer than 15 minutes. And so verifying really just means adding your phone number to the account. It's not a scary thing. It's not a very detailed or an in-depth thing either. So I added my phone number to account. My videos don't tend to last shorter than 15 minutes. That's not the kind of videos that I post. My videos are created in real time in the classroom. My classes, not always the lecture portion of it, but my classes run either 50 minutes or an hour and 15. So my videos tend to be somewhere between 25, 30 minutes on a shorter class period up to maybe an hour in a longer class period, because I'm definitely not talking for an hour and 15 minutes in an hour and 15-minute class. That doesn't work well. So my videos do tend to last about 30 minutes to an hour. And then they're all created inside of this app called Doceri. So Doceri is what I'm going to actually show you. I'm actually presenting from that on here and recording from that on here right now. It's a free app. There are some perks you can add that cost just a little bit, and I'll talk about that one in a minute. But the app itself is free. And so it's something that, in terms of sustainability and things like that, is really good as I send my students out into the classroom that they can actually use, because they don't have to pay anything for it. What we do, and this is exactly what I have my students do, is I have them create a PowerPoint or a keynote presentation. One thing to keep in mind is that the animation will not be preserved, so don't waste your time creating, sliding in images and things like that. You can't do that inside of this environment. Let's say, for instance, that I did want to create something where I only had like bullet point 3 and I didn't have anything else on this slide. What I would have to do is create two different slides, one that had just bullet point 3 and then the next one that had what I wanted, and I would have to create multiple slides to get that effect. And I've had students do that on occasion where they wanted something to be hidden for a period of time and then to be able to show up later. So the animation is not preserved. You can save. What you need to do after you've created that presentation, and I use PowerPoint, is that you have to save the presentation as a PDF. I usually have my students bring their computers in because many of them don't know how to save it as a PDF, and there's about 3 different versions of PowerPoint that have them save it as PDFs in 3 different ways. And so we just play with it till we find the link inside of the inside of the program to do that. So you save it as a PDF, and then you email the presentation to yourself. So my students actually email it to me because all the iPads are in my name. They have my email account on them. When I do it myself, I email it to myself, to whatever email address I have on the device I'm working on. So this one right here is actually my personal email address that it's linking to. And then once I actually have the presentation pulled up inside of the email server, I actually open up inside of iBooks or Kindle. It doesn't have to be done that way. It just makes the screen capturing easier. So some of my iPads have iBooks on them, 2 of them do. The other one has a Kindle version on there, and I don't know why, and it doesn't really matter. They both serve the same purpose, so they function equally well. And then I screen capture each slide. So if you're not familiar with screen capturing just means that I push the 2 buttons on an iProduct at the same time. So I push the 2, so if I'm using this device right here, one of them is over here on the right-hand side, and the other one is the on-off switch for the whole device. If I push both of them simultaneously, it sounds like a camera, and it takes a picture and it stores it in my photo library. And so the students do that on every single slide they've created on the PDF version. And then they need to be told, and they're reminded as they do it, to use caution to capture exactly what they need. So if there's any random marks that they've made or anything like that, it's going to look exactly like it is on their screen. So they screen capture all of that, and that is really not a very long process. When my students come to my office, it usually takes us longer to figure out how to save it as a PDF based on the device that they are using. And then we do the screen capture bit, and then what they're going to do is they're going to open Doceri and they're going to import the slides. And so all of this process probably takes them, even like when they show up in my office with the PDF and all of the stuff and everything, we're probably looking like a 10-minute thing. And once they know how to save things as PDF, the actual process for the screen capturing and everything else is a very minimal amount of time, 2-3 minutes for me to actually create the presentation put the presentation into the iPad. I can add, and I would tell the students to add any needed markings on slides. So maybe that's because they want to create an equation and they're not really comfortable or familiar with using an equation editor program, and it's just easier for them to write the equation on the slide. Or maybe it's a drawing and they're just not getting the image imported the way that they want it imported from the web or whatever, and it's just simpler to create the drawing before class. And so they can create whatever markings they need to on their slides before class with the tools inside of Doceri, and then you name and save the project. So this is what I do before class. So I'd like to show you what happens during class, and in order to do that, I'm going to change the setting inside of the program right now, so give me just a moment. And I'll show you how I did it too in a sec once I get the other slide. All right, so during class, what I do is I actually project to the overhead via the Apple TV that I mentioned earlier. The way that you actually connect to the Apple TV is it kind of depends a little bit on the operating system on the device you're working on. My current iPad that I'm using, I swipe from the bottom of the screen. This is what I wanted to show you, but it's not working. So I swipe from the bottom of the screen, I select the AirPlay, and then I choose the current projector. One of the things that we did want to be careful of when we did that is that we wanted to make sure that those were somehow connected to our employee internet so that students weren't able to actually randomly display things to our Apple TVs. And so that is how they are actually set up, but it was something that our IT department had to think through how they wanted to set that up appropriately. And the other thing to be careful of when we do that is that I can project to any Apple TV that's within distance. So in theory, I might actually select the wrong Apple TV and present next door. So we do have to be a little bit careful about that. But I haven't had any issues with that one. The other thing that I can do is I can connect through a VGA cable, and so that's how I'm connected here right now. It does tether me, but it is still usable, and so I can't hand off the iPad to another student, but in the classroom when the Apple TV is flaking out, and it happens on occasion, not real frequently, but I do have another way that I can still continue my class in the same way that I would have before. And so once I've connected to that, I will open Doceri. I would select my presentation. There's a button along the top of my screen that you can't see right now because all my tools are hiding that says record, and it looks like a record button on a video camera or whatever. You press the button, you press it to finish when you're done. The recording markings on my screen actually show up, and my voice is recorded. It does not pick up students' voices because they are far enough away from the iPad that it's not far enough or close enough to actually work. And I've checked that before because I've had a couple of inappropriate comments at different points that I wouldn't want going out, in a recording. So it does not pick up my students' voices. As you can see, you don't see any of the toolbars along the top of my screen, but I have toolbars along the top. The nice thing about this projection screen right here is that it's very clean. It's not distracting to see all the toolbars. I've used and tried other programs, tried other apps, because there are some flaky things about Doceri that I don't particularly like. But the fact that those toolbars are hidden is actually very valuable to me, and I find that to be a really important feature. The one thing that's not so very friendly if you use the free version, and I don't have the free version, is that you get a watermark down in the right-hand corner of their icon, of the Doceri icon. Now, I don't see it on my screen. You only see it on the projection screen and on the recording that's actually posted to YouTube. The reason that I make mention of that is because it means that as a presenter, you have to be careful to not write on that little corner of your screen if you're going to have the watermark. And in some respects, it's a little bit distracting. It's not terrible. But we actually paid $1 to remove it, and we decided $1 was definitely worth removing the watermark. The normal cost was $4, and we probably still would have paid that eventually because it was a little bit annoying to have it down there. And so they were just running a special, and we got it removed for $1. And so then I don't have to worry about the bottom corner of my screen. There are some super cool tools inside of Doceri. I can save the presentation as a PDF. Not only can I do the recording like I'm doing and use that via YouTube, I can do the PDF and then I can email it and I can post that link in another place, that document in another place. I have writing tools in here where I can change my pen stroke, the width, the color, the spacing, the opacity. I have images where I can do lines, squares, circles, arrows. And just to give you, even though you can't see my screen, I can show you a few of them that are saved in here right now. And so I can make any and all of these marks on my screen. I also have erasers. The different eraser actually allows me to change the width of the eraser. So I have a very broad eraser, right? And I have a very narrow eraser that I can make, and so that I can do very narrow kinds of erasing through things. Something else is that if I am telling a student about erasing, is that I can, erase the whole slide. So imagine that I want to use the same presentation and I want to present it in another talk later today. I can erase all of this, and that's fine, and for a couple of times it's probably okay. The problem that I found very quickly is that it's not really erased. It's really just sort of glossed over and it's hiding, and eventually if you reuse the presentation over and over again, hidden things show back up again, and I don't exactly know why on that, but they do. So there's another tool where if I hold it down and I actually can select it, and I can cut and paste. And so you can't see that I'm doing that, but I just hold it down and it allows me to cut and paste things, and then they're really gone. And so that's actually kind of a cool feature as well. And it has a wrist guard. So at the very bottom of my screen, again, you can't see it, which would be annoying actually if you could. There is, on a larger iPad, that this becomes awkward to write at this angle on a device like this. But I actually have at the bottom of the screen, we're trying to see if you guys can see something. It looks kind of grayed out. Do you see the little gray out looking area? If I touch on that part of the screen, it will not write on my screen. It'll allow me to rest my hand there and write in, sort of a normal writing fashion. And that's very usable for this, this device for me to be able to do it. Because with mathematics and with the presentation, none of this really matters. I'm not even writing on my screen, right? No big deal. But if I'm teaching in a math classroom, I want to be able to solve something, write equations, stuff like that. And so this becomes a very usable feature. After class, I do just two basic things. I drag the recording after I click the record button that ends the recording. I drag the recording on top of the YouTube icon, and I give it a name and whatever, and it sends it out into YouTube space. And so it only takes me about 5 minutes or less to upload mine because our upload speed in the room that I'm usually uploading in is pretty good. The first time that you have to do it, you actually have to enter your YouTube information, obviously, or it's not going to know where to go. And then I place the link inside of my course management system, or I can email it. So if you were concerned that it might not be the best thing ever for your students who think, I'll just not pay attention, I'll just get it later, you could just actually only email it as you desired to the students you desired to email it to. So just a few outcomes that I wanted to make mention of. That attendance issue that we were concerned about has absolutely not even been a problem at all. We've had absolutely no attendance issues. Now, am I saying that I know for sure 100% certain that nobody's ever skipped my class because they knew that they could view it later? I don't. But substantially in terms of numbers of students in my classes, there hasn't been any changes in anything. It's allowed for students who have to make up for excused absences to actually have that environment. So I have athletes that travel. I have people who have to be gone for a wedding, and this gives them that ability. I've had students tell me that for exams, they're able to go back and just watch all the videos that they didn't understand again. They can review from the videos that are posted. It allows for flexibility for my absences. So when my kid is sick, and I would normally have had to cancel my class, or for those of you who teach K-12 and you'd have to hire a substitute, you actually know what they're going to get because they're going to get you. And so that's actually really good because they can actually, I could project that during class if I were missing. I can tell my students to watch it on their own at home. So it gives me flexibility to be here today and my students not to be off from actual classes. I actually make my postings public. So if you actually put my name into YouTube, you will see all the videos that I've posted out there. I find them to be broadly useful to the public. I think they're useful to our students. We have a student class right now, rather. It's Calc 3 class, and the professor's not doing any kind of recordings or of anything. Some of the students are having difficulty at different points understanding. This allows them to get another perspective of a Calc 3 class that was taught not very long ago. And then I will occasionally have students as well who are now not students. They're actually in-service teachers, and they'll message me and they'll be like, I don't remember how to do X, Y, Z. And I can send them the video, and I can be like, check out this video. You can watch, what we did in class from when the class is, when you were in class. These are my outcomes as of yesterday. I went and got current numbers for you. I have 966 videos that are posted to YouTube. This is over about 3 years and about, this 2 months of this year or whatever. I've had 284,645 views. About 1.6 million minutes have been watched during that time. 1326 likes, and there are 74 dislikes, and they range from all sorts of things. And just like with student evaluations, you get both sides of that. There have been 430 comments, 396 shares, and I have 1,605 subscribers. I do want to mention that you do not have to make your videos public. There is a private setting. My colleague that's not here with me today, she does not want her videos to be public. That makes her very uncomfortable. So all of hers are private. The only way a student can get into them is by actually having the link that she sends them or posts inside of her classroom. So that's actually there as well. If that's something that you're like, oh, I don't think I want the whole world listening to me do anything, you actually have that ability as well. So I know we're out of time. This is my information and my colleagues' information. If you'd like to write those down. I actually, if you want to send me an email, I would be happy to send you the link to what I just did today because this is recorded. And you'll be able to see that. You can also, from that, I can send you a more detailed how do I do this, kind of a bulleted list of what steps we take to actually get our videos to be posted into there, what we tell our students and how they can do that. And thank you very much.